So, estate planning isn't that fun to think about, especially when you're younger, right? Because it's not like we think about what to do with a checking account or savings account or student loans or what's going to happen there. But let's talk a little bit about what happens to stuff when you die. Okay. Just a big picture conversation. So, our first video on estate planning, what happens to stuff when you die? Well, there's really three things that can happen to your stuff when you die. The first is your stuff passes through what we call a probate estate. Basically, if it doesn't have any other home, right? If a court has to kind of stamp it and give it to someone else, it's going to go through probate. Things like a house that you're the title on or a car in your garage, those are things that generally will be probated over time. Now, bank accounts, if it's just you, yeah, it's got to go through probate. If it has someone else's name on it, it may go to them. So that's the first thing that happens to your stuff, right? We have probate assets for a portion of your things. Any physical property too, things in your house, things you might own, look around you, those would be considered physical personal property. The second element is what we would call by operation of law. So if you have another name on a title, this is owned with Craig and Manny the dog joint property. In that case, joint tenants of the entirety, joint tenants in common. If I were to die, Manny the dog would get that asset. So when we look at how houses are titled with married couples, quite often we use something called tenants of the entirety or tenants with rights of survivorship. And either way, the surviving spouse winds up with that piece of property. It's very common with houses. And then the third way that we pass stuff when someone dies is called beneficiary transfer. If you have a retirement account or life insurance policy or annuity or brokerage account that pays on death, all of those would pass through beneficiary transfer, and the person's name on that account would become the one that gets those assets when you go. And I bring that up to say that often we think we have a will, that's enough, we're done. And that covers that 1/3 probate property, but it doesn't cover the rest of it either. And we'll go ahead and kind of think of it globally. Those are really the three areas. So when we do estate planning, yeah, we're going to have an attorney draft up a will, but we also want to make sure we review all the beneficiary designations and titling so our estate plan is tight and works together, and make sure that when somebody does pass away, those assets are transferred in a way that we really hope they would be.